right now we're going to talk about downtown Battle Creek. And Joe Sobieralski from Battle Creek Unlimited is with us. Good morning to you, Joe.
Good morning, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Nice to have the head honcho from our downtown development arm here.
Battle Creek Unlimited, we're an economic development organization, and we're primarily focused on the Fort Custer Industrial Park. Serial City Development Corp has been tasked with doing some downtown economic development and some corridor economic development, and we will be partnering with them on that. But, as some transitions take place, we've got some legacy projects that will still be downtown.
I see, yeah. I was out there for the groundbreaking out there at the fort for the new road going through. How's that coming out there?
It's going great. The sites are done. The road's in. It's complete. We've got one lot sold, to Bowers Aluminum. Foundations are being completed this week, and steel is scheduled to be delivered the first week of December. So we're cranking.
It's just amazing how important that has become to this community.
Absolutely.
That whole thing. When I was a kid, we would drive to some relatives over in Albion. So we would drive down Michigan Avenue, now M96, and you'd get to Fort Custer and you'd have to stop because the gate was across there, and the soldiers would come out then and check your car and let you pass through. And some of it, I swear, was a dirt road. And then there was just all this, land there, and somebody had the foresight to develop that into an industrial park, and here we are now. Without it, we would just be in dire straits in this community.
I think we really need to reflect on that and thank our leaders in the past that had the foresight to make that happen. It's amazing when you talk to people around the country in similar organizations as BCU. It's kind of unheard of to have something like that in such a really short span of time develop.
Yeah, we're grateful for that. Now, you mentioned that you've been lending a hand with some legacy projects downtown. There are a lot of those, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
How many empty buildings down there are teetering on the brink of oblivion that we're trying to find reuse for and saving?
Well, there's I don't have that exact number, but there's probably quite a few.
At least a dozen that are kind of top of mind, maybe?
Yeah. That's a good number, between 9 and a dozen. I know the ones that probably everybody gravitates towards are the buildings that are currently held by 180 Urban.
And what is 180 Urban?
180 Urban is the name of a development company.
Okay.
LLC.
That David Shaka and his wife own or run?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So, those were buildings that essentially were transferred to the land bank some time ago, over 2 years ago. And the land bank tried to get those into a developer's hand, and they sold them for $1 a piece. Not untypical with a lot of land banks to create deals like that to try to get some activity flowing. And but it came with some timelines. To get some capital stacks in place and whatnot. And it was a year timeline, which was a pretty aggressive timeline for both parties. But so we stepped in and asked the land bank if we could take those agreements over and try to walk this developer through the process to give a little more time. So we extended the deadline, and
that was about a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, about a year ago.
December.
So another year passes, and we don't have capital stacks in place. We don't have, the plans finalized and moved along for various reasons. But so we decided to acquire and to go after the buildings and get them back so that we can get those in some viable developers' hands that have some resources to maybe make some things happen.
Mm-hmm. These three properties, one of them is Fred's building, the old Office Ways building, Carlisle Street.
15 Carlisle, yes. 64 West Michigan and 119 West Michigan. So. And
what are those buildings specifically? What were they?
I'm not a historian on the community. I've only been in the community 2 years, so I don't really know that answer. I know 64 has had some. There's been some bars in there, some nightclubs, those types of activities where I believe the recent occupants.
I should have looked that up, but the building on Carlisle has such potential.
It is. It's a beautiful setting. It's got that look that everybody wants now. That's in, and it's
kind of a New York
for
loft,
somebody.
sort of an old factory look, brick and beautiful.
Beams,
oh yeah,
exposed brick on the river next to the Kellogg headquarters. It really is a neat building.
What's it gonna take for BCU to legally get those 3 properties back? I mean, they're still in the hands of 180 Urban, right?
Yeah. We may have to, and we're prepared to go to court to get those buildings back per the agreements that all parties signed up to. We're prepared to take that leap and make that happen. We believe we owe it to the public to get these buildings back into viable use. We hear people. I live in this community. I like this community. I live in this community. I bring people into this community. I want to help make some things happen. So we hear the public. We want to make some things happen.
And it's BCU's position that the agreement you have in place with 180 Urban gives you every right to take those properties back now after this period?
Absolutely.
So it's going to be a done deal. It's just a matter of whether it's going to be the hard way or the easy way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what's your next step?
Our next step, we will go the court process to get the buildings back, and that is underway.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, a bizarre story in the news about the developer, David Shaka, had claimed that an intruder at the Carlisle building had gotten in an altercation with him and fired a shot at him, which later he admitted, according to reports, was self-inflicted. So it sounds like there's definitely some trouble going on there with that company.
Yeah. I don't want to comment on that, or I can't comment on that. It's just an unfortunate situation, really.
Certainly is. And, the public, I think, just wants to see our downtown, move forward. And there's so many great old buildings that mean a lot to people that we just want to see them flourish, find a reuse like we did for the old youth building.
Absolutely. I think you'll see some things happen here when we get these buildings back. We market them properly. We're going to make this a transparent process. We're gonna once we acquire these buildings and get these buildings back, we're toying with the idea of doing a public RFP. Advertise to the world. Hey, we've got these 3 buildings. There are some sectors that we may like. Battle Creek doesn't have a craft brewery. It'd be nice to have, get a new craft brewery back, some things, and just lay it out there for people to give us the ideas back, show us that they have the wherewithal to, if they get a free building, what are they going to do, how are they going to make it happen, and, hopefully we get a ton of responses so that we can try to work those folks in with the folks at CCDC into some other properties, and hopefully we're off to the races to make some things happen.
Are there other properties downtown that BCU has a stake or control or interest in?
We don't have any. We have a stake in, obviously, Heritage Tower, but we don't own any other buildings. But that's not to say that we couldn't, step in and try to make some things happen there.
I was downtown the other day taking a few pictures of buildings, and I noticed Heritage Tower. It's looking pretty rough. I noticed a lot of window problems, especially. I was looking up at the, must have been south side of the building. It looked pretty rough.
Mm-hmm. It is. But I would, tell everybody that there are a lot of good people, a lot of parties working on this diligently to bring this to the finish line. And I think we're close.
I have talked to a few people, community leaders and business leaders, and I've heard the same thing 3 or 4 times, I don't care what happens to any of those buildings down there as long as they save that Heritage Tower. Yeah. And I know they do care about the other buildings, but the emphasis is we really need to find some way to save this one for sure. Yeah,
I think that's the beacon of the turnaround for downtown. You got Battle Creek Tower. It's got residential units. It's got a waiting list. So there is demand there. And, the more residential units you can bring downtown, the more it'll support some of these other initiatives we were talking about, breweries, sandwich shops, vacant storefronts. It's kind of the chicken or the egg. So,
is the roof intact on that Heritage Tower building?
It's underway right now. I believe with a loan through the Community Foundation, it is allowing it to be buttoned up so that any work that has been done so far will be preserved.
Well, that's so important. You spoke of the land bank. Today, have an initiative going today with the Battle Creek Police Department where the bomb squad will be going to 3 condemned properties for various training and exercises. And so I brought them up. I brought the pictures up. I posted them on our website. They all look pretty respectable places. So I called the director over at the land bank, and one's got mold, extensive mold inside. The others, the roofs were compromised, so everything's ruined inside. Once a roof goes, forget it. It doesn't take long.
Yes, absolutely.
Man. We're talking with Joe Sobieralski of the Battle Creek Unlimited about development here in the Battle Creek area. We talked a little bit about some of those old properties downtown that need help. And I guess all we can say, Joe, is start thinking and talking with people that have some money and think of some great ideas, because it won't be long and those things are going to be available to some developer with vision and a little better resources.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you about another issue, and that is the medical marijuana issue. It keeps coming up in communities all across Michigan. I believe the new state law basically says, look, unless you say you want it, you can't have it, or you have to give it the nod in your community, otherwise it's not kosher.
Right.
And so a few communities are saying, okay, yeah, we'll allow it and see what happens. But I think maybe even a few more communities are saying, nah, you know what, let's say no right now and see how those communities do with this, this marijuana thing. But people are calling BCU and inquiring whether they can develop some medical marijuana industry here?
Absolutely.
Really?
And you're absolutely right. Every community is going to have an opportunity to either opt in or opt out. There's 3 categories. I think there's a growing and processing, and that's the one that has drawn the most attention at BCU. We've gotten inquiries, and the reality of it is, and I'm not endorsing it one way nor the other, is that these operations are well funded, they're very sophisticated, and they come with hundreds of jobs that could absorb some abandoned or vacant industrial buildings and provide, I've been hearing wage numbers of $18 an hour to start with benefits.
Wow. 100 jobs, $18 an hour with benefits. In this day and age, it's kind of hard to just sweep that under the rug.
I would guesstimate that if Battle Creek were to, opt in, just on the growing and processing alone, you're probably talking 300 to 500 jobs almost instantly.
So where's our city commission been with that? They pretty much kind of sidestepped the issue until the new commission could be elected?
That's what I'm hearing. I think they wanted to give a chance for the new commissioners to get their, feet under them, and then since they will be the commissioners for the next 3 years, take this up for a vote themselves, and rather than dealing with it before the election.
It'd be very interesting to call your city commissioner and find out where they're at on that issue, and let them know your thoughts, if you have thoughts one way or the other. I know there are people that are concerned about the type of business that is, but there were an awful lot of concerns about a casino coming into our area. And people very passionate on both sides. But, I mean, people were, the sky is falling. This is going to be the worst thing ever. I guess it depends on who runs the business, because the Nottawasapi tribe has shown that they can be a major asset to this community. I mean, they're serving Thanksgiving dinner this week over at the Firekeeper Hub for 1,200 or more people in our community. I mean, it's just on and on, The sky didn't fall there. I mean, sure, there's always going to be problems associated with gambling, just like there probably could be with marijuana use. But, it doesn't have to be a terrible thing.
Yeah, and there's communities, there's surrounding communities that are going to support it, surrounding Battle Creek. So, we have a transient workforce. So, it's keeping it out of your backyard isn't going to necessarily keep somebody from, getting it legally the way this law is. So.
And it was the same with gambling,
Absolutely.
I mean, my goodness, if they don't go over to our local casino and gamble, people that want to gamble are going to gamble. It doesn't matter where they live, especially now with the internet. And when we first started talking about that whole firekeepers issue, there wasn't even internet gambling because there wasn't even internet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, boy, the world changes fast, doesn't it, Joe?
Yes, it does.
My goodness. I appreciate you coming by today to chat with us a little bit about BCU. It's always great to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.